And welcome everybody to the WCG Grand Finals in Xi'an for Honor of Kings. I'm Alexander Opal-Arjavo. Joining me for the day is Devin Pyrotechnics. Young Devin, how is it good to be back in China for yourself? I know I live here, but you come and visit me now pretty often.
I do. It's nice. I'm able to kind of come and go now. I did make a big mistake. I forgot to pack the USB cable that we needed to get the game starting, and that's why we were delayed, so apologies to all of you out there, but thank you for sticking with us for all of this. We are ready to rock and roll finally. These teams from all over the world, of course, so Chinese representatives coming in very hot, looking very strong. I'm looking forward to seeing who's able to take it after 3-4 days of play.
Yeah, you know, we had to take that round trip to Hong Kong really quick.
It was a bit hard, but we got those last-minute flights. It was a good deal. You know, we made it happen in the end.
It was pretty good. And, of course, we do have 2 matches for you guys on our feed as well as the sub-feed that you guys can go and watch yourselves as well if you want to see some of the Malaysian representatives coming in. But for now, we are going to be having 2 of our Chinese playing, actually our 2 European, our first European representative. That's going to be Nova eSports taking on AG.Y. And then we're going to be seeing KSSC take on INTZ from Brazil.
Yeah, that was going to be originally our first match of the day here on this stream. Of course, it has made a couple of changes. We will take a look, though, at some of our competitors. Today's matchups, this is what you were talking about, Opal. It starts with Nova eSports from Germany taking on AG.Y. Hometown heroes in their own right, of course. Invited teams across the board.
Invited teams except for AG.Y, of course, because that was the Samsung qualifier team. I do believe that came on in, so they were able to as well. But like you mentioned, a lot of the international Western teams did come in through invites, and it's pretty awesome to see. A lot of these are teams for you guys in the West. You're going to be familiar with them. They're from Arena of Valor. That's usually the westernized version of Honor of Kings. Of course, we are playing, though, you know, the OG, the original from China.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting to see how some of the teams adapt. You know, they're coming in playing this game that is effectively a couple years out in the future, slightly different characters and things like that. The kits are a little different, but here is the way the tournament is formatted right now. 10 teams splitting off into 2 groups. We get a round robin, best of 3. You get 3 points for winning, of course, and those points are going to matter to get you into the knockout stage.
Yeah, your knockout stage is going to be just single elimination. That, of course, is going to be a best of 3 format, including our finals. And you're going to be looking at our prize pool as well. First place, $80,000. Second place, they cut that in half to 40, and then third place, of course, 20, as we will be having a third place match on Saturday night.
Yes, we will, of course, and that'll be kind of whetting your appetite for all the action that will come into the final, but there's still a chance for those teams to walk away with a not insignificant prize pool. And I think for a lot of the orgs that are coming from not just Arena of Valor, but maybe smaller regions, you talked about Malaysian representatives earlier, we were discussing them off the screen. I think that is a big deal for these teams to kind of get a little extra change in their pocket to, you know, really kickstart the competitive journey.
Yeah, and Honor Kings is extremely popular in Malaysia. It's one of the outer regions that does actually play the game kind of competitively in comparison to China itself. So that's actually really awesome to see. And there's a solid chance that they actually might be going up against China in our grand finals if you look at the power rankings coming into this. But you, of course, can't count out our Western teams from the Valor Series from Latin America, Europe, and North America as well.
I mean, they're all winners, second place, third place. I mean, these are teams that are so strong in their own home regions. The question is, how well will they adjust to the slightly different game style mechanics and coming over here?
Yeah, and a couple of them, you know, I believe the North American representative, you know, they were just over in Vietnam playing at the AWC that, of course, was won by Vietnam in the very end. So these guys have been traveling pretty hectically. One thing to note, though, is for our Western teams, they do actually have an English version of the game. So they're not kind of left out to, you know, be completely lost.
They're able to see it and, you know, not having to translate everything on the fly and try to figure out what all the buttons do. That's always beneficial.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, functionally, very similar, if not the exact same as Arena of Valor, so that wouldn't have been necessarily the worst. But it really will be kind of an interesting trial to see how well the teams can adjust in the short time to the game changes.
Yeah, we'll be getting into our first match quite shortly here. Again, teams are getting set on both our stage across from us as well as the tournament zone that you guys can see just behind us where we have all our other teams playing.
Wonderful cube in the background.
Yeah, you know,
as well. It's been blasting music all day.
Yeah, we call it, we praise the cube.
Yeah.
It gives us power.
We kind of go like this.
Yeah, you know, we do the formation,
exactly.
Get it ready, and then we draw on its power. That's how we've kept ourselves alive for the last, you know,
pretty
almost 12
much,
hours.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like I said, the round trip fight is definitely a long one, but in all seriousness, thank you everybody for sticking with us throughout all the tech issues. We do apologize that it's taking a while to get started, but I'm so excited to get this tournament underway, to get the Honor of Kings action going. I'm just buzzing at this point.
Like, everyone's like, oh, you means you just got like a day off, but honestly, I like casting games. Yeah. That's why I came out here, and I wanted to cast some Honor of Kings, because, you know, it's not, you've only seen the English broadcast for it from us for the qualifier that last month, as well as the World Championship that's just currently taking place over in Korea. Yeah. So, again, you don't get to see this too often, so I'm excited.
It's nice to really be able to see this kind of bringing itself more into English-speaking audiences, and I'm really happy to be a part of it myself. And I kind of feel that energy coming off you, but I know you're ready to rock and roll for this
I'm just
one.
jumping
I
at
am
this
too.
point.
It's going to be fantastic, and I can't wait to get into those first pick and bans. But let's talk about our two teams here. We've got Nova coming in from Germany, coming in from the Valor Series Europe, and they're going to be facing off against AG.Y. Now, I think there's always an inherent advantage for the Chinese teams, but
just
how do you reckon Nova's going to handle them?
Well, after talking to Jesse, the manager of the team, they're feeling, pretty confident. Of course, they are also, they got to get their mindset back into frame of having to play today because, they were also chilling in that player lounge. Some players, were taking naps because, they had the flight or two and they got a little tired. They got to get themselves back in the mindset that they can take this, and they have been doing very well of actually, trying to get on in it, but it doesn't matter as we are going to go ahead and jump into our draft for game one here between Nova and AG.Y. We already see, again, some mages being taken off the board as well as Nova banning out one of the roaming supports that will apply a lot of CC for the team.
Yeah, now for those of you that haven't necessarily watched, any sort of mobile MOBA before, it's not going to be all that different than what you would see in a game like League of Legends or Dota 2. You've got the same type of roles. You have side laners, you have mid laners, oftentimes mages, you'll have assassins, you have junglers, and what's interesting is there are a lot more like solo kind of lanes and a lot of rotational movements that happen. The game pace is a lot faster.
Yeah, and for you guys that might be familiar already with, Honor of Kings eSports, we do have the Gongsong Li getting banned out. Again, hyper mobile carry when it comes into the late game.
Super popular hero as well. We see her in so many pro matches.
Yeah, a lot of outplay potential. And players on mobile especially love that. It's highly item dependent, but it won't matter as we're not going to be seeing her in the first game. And for those who are familiar and have seen some games before of Honor of Kings in the pro leagues, we are not using the global draft system. So that pretty much means if you play once and you win, it means you can't pick it. Here, the drafts can remain the same between games. So we might be seeing a lot of the similar picks that we see game to game, as we already see, of course, one of the side lanes being locked in here for Nova and the Marco Polo coming out from AG.Y and the Pengu.
I am not surprised to see either of those, but especially so the Marco Polo. With the likes of like a Gongsong Li being banned away, you're expecting like this sort of hero that can not only be very fast, light on his feet, but can do a lot of fast shot movement. It's just a rapid fire kind of hero. On the other side, Nova now, they're kind of toying with the idea of picking up the Tai, which is a very, very mobile support. They can roam around the map, set up a lot of things. And speaking of mobility and kill potential, that's a Yukio for Snox. That might be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, if you actually look at like some tier lists made, still Lubu.
Yeah.
Highly contested pick when it came into the qualifiers here in China, and both are going to get locked in. So T, a lot of potential when it comes to playmaking. That's what you call a roaming support. In comparison to traditional MOBAs that you would play on your PC, your bot lane, or I guess your side lane with the marksman, often actually plays alone, and the support goes and roams. What's nice about T, though, is you can roam around, provide stuns, as well as you have an AoE self-resurrection. So if you're able to use it right before someone dies, they get rezzed along with you.
Well, it could happen with the entirety of the team, too. That's the nutty part about it. I'm looking forward to seeing how will they instigate these fights with the likes of the Lubu. It's going to be a dangerous composition for AG.Y to have to contend with, but they have some power picks. You already spoke on the Pengu. I talked about Marco Polo. Let's see what they add to this.
Yeah. With that in mind, the Marco Polo does have a little bit of mobility to try and get away from that Lubu dive. Can be a bit scary here for AG.Y. I'm sure they're confident that's going to be, of course, that getting locked in. So that is, of course, going to be our horse. Gongyu, yeah.
Yeah, he's a big horse rider. He kind of charges people down. If you're familiar with a game like League of Legends, he's sort of like Hecarim. He just sort of scares people away. And that makes sense because you needed a bit more of a backbone to go with your mobile carries. Now we enter ban phase 2, and Tiger's actually banned away. This is a hero that does a very fast jungle clear. He turns into, as his name would suggest, a giant jungle cat, and he basically clears the camps almost for free. And I can see why they wouldn't want to allow that.
You do see Nova is trying to aim toward, of course, the support pickups that could come out from AG.Y. You go ahead and bang out the Gugu Z. That's providing you, again, the AoE stealth mechanic that can come in from the brush from the river. On top of that, they ban out the sniper, otherwise known as Bali. A lot of range that can come out, and getting that off the table is actually really nice here for Nova because that can be almost a cheesy pick at times.
Yeah, I think it really just goes to show, the Chinese teams are going to have so much more experience playing specifically specifically on this version of the game compared to Arena of Valor, and we'll see how Nova's actually able to hand it. I think their composition is solid so far, but we'll see what they add to it. They actually ban out a pretty long-range champion.
Mengjuzi,
I believe. Yeah,
yes.
I got to make sure my pronunciation's right. But basically, just lobs bombs, locks down mid lane almost constantly. They don't want to allow that. They want to be able to get in people's faces with these not only roaming supports, but really strong fighter line.
Interesting here for AG.Y. I'd be surprised if we see this getting locked in. This is not too common. So again, you hear that you're looking at right now is more or less a brawler. Very similar to if you played League of Legends. Vi when it comes to just using that punch to go forward and as well as trying to get a knockback.
Yeah, Damo. And it's weird because you already have Guan Yu. And this makes a lot more sense. Locking in a support, I think that was just a bit of a misdirect. And this is Sunbin.
Sunbin, yes. Again, known more or less as the time mage almost, can put down bombs onto people that come into the fight.
And he can zone people, I believe.
Yes, the ultimate is a massive AoE. This would be rather interesting, though, coming out from Nova. If the Moxie gets locked in, if you played AoV, very similar to Gilder, pretty much your long-range mage that just looks to jump into the middle of fights and then, of course, lock everyone down with that ultimate. And guess what? Nova are going to go ahead and lock this in.
Yeah, so looking at this composition right now, I feel like there's just so much mobility here on their side. And the Lubu should be on the front line. I really like what the Tai can bring and the Mosey, as you talked about. How do AG.Y respond to this? We already know with the Sunbin they're going to try to zone people away from a lot of those objectives, looking at the tyrants that will spawn so early on in the game. But they're going to have to get a lockdown on this. They're going to have to try for that counterplay to not get isolated, not get caught out.
On top of that, too, if they lock in the Moon Goddess here coming out from 2Z, it is going to get locked in. So the amount of AoE that's been presented here by AG.Y during a team fight can be rather devastating if they're not too careful. So on the side of Nova, they can't be grouped up, especially around, those tyrant fights that are going to be coming out toward the middle part of the game. It can be just, absolutely devastating.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the challenge here for Nova, to see if they can maybe get some picks and then they can start the tyrants, they can get the snowball rolling. We'll see if they're able to make that happen. I think it will always be an uphill challenge for a team coming from one region to another, but add to the fact that they're more used to the Arena of Valor version of the game. See if they can get a win off the block early. Just one game, you can start building that momentum. It's only best of 3. The games are fast-paced. You can honestly hit them with the surprise left hook, and then the right's a lot easier to land.
Yeah, on top of that, too, I know Sui over on the other stage, we were talking to some of these Western teams, and, his advice for those teams that were, asking for picks from the casters, he kind of just said, you know what? Play AoV champs. A lot of the picks for Nova, I believe 4 of them, have pretty much direct ports into AoV. You have the Gilder in there. You have, I believe it's called the Teamy over in AoV as well. You have a lot of heroes being picked up here by Nova that they're actually going to be relatively familiar with, and add on a little bit of CC that we're going to see. It should pay off, but as you guys can see, we're going to go ahead and load up into the Valley here for Game 1. Nova on your blue side and AG.Y on the red.
Yes, indeed, and we will take a look at how the front line starts to stand out here. That roaming early on, once he actually managing to get a blind sword through that brush before he dashes his way to safety. And this is the big difference you see in mobile MOBAs to those for the desktop. It's always about those early fights. Breaker, got to be careful there, as Sheik was actually going in onto him early. They're going to fight over blue buff.
Look at this invade, though. We'll see if Nova can defend his AG.Y. They say, welcome to China. We want to see what you can do as they go in on this invade. Blue is actually going to be secured here on the side of 1C. He's able to take it away, and Nova already on the back foot.
Yeah, that's the flying start that we were looking for from the Chinese representatives. They know this game. They know exactly where to go, and you could see Clyde got way too low too fast. Rather than give up the first blood, they decided to cede over the blue buff instead.
On top of that, too, it's very devastating to be sent back this early. Sure, it's Clyde, so he's going to be the support looking to roam, but guess what? AG.Y continue to just apply pressure directly into the jungle, even going toe-to-toe with Simjo, which in Western AoV is one of those historic players that's been around for a long time.
Yeah, and it's just that slight differences is enough to make up the gap in experience. Simjo really going to be set far behind here, as A's was able to do that before even bothering to get into the lane. And this is going to be rough on Nova eSports' side. You already see a 500 gold advantage at a minute and a half into the game. Trying to stun through. Snox doesn't manage to find Waz there.
I think, though, for Nova, as long as they're not falling behind super early on a game they would consider, not as popular or as familiar with, I think they're feeling fine just right now. Sure, it's a little bit rough in the lane phase, but as long as you're not giving over too many kills, you're only giving a little bit of gold, and that's a little bit concerning. It's just mainly farm difference.
It's all about the 5v5, right? Like, Nova wants to get into a situation where
Clyde.
they can get comfortably into that position. Clyde, though, unfortunately, looked like he might have been caught out, but he does run back over to Memo. Oh, and that's the force stack. Insta first blood to the Moon Goddess. Man, the trap shut right as he was getting just to the edge of it. That's going to be that first Tyrant.
On top of that, like you mentioned, Tyrant's going to be started up here by AG.Y. This is where it gets a little concerning. 1 kill into a Tyrant, that's going to be a pretty decent snowball of gold. You're looking at about 1,500 already at 2.5 minutes. It's not insurmountable, but anything but small things like Simjo getting picked off in the jungle, that is not what you're looking here for Nova, and they're starting to bleed.
Yeah, that's not the kind of blue you want to be right now when your screen's flashing gray. It's really looking rough now for Nova eSports. 2 kills down. They've lost the Tyrant early on. There's going to be no neutral objectives to take for a couple more minutes, and you've got to stabilize. As I was saying earlier, it's about that 5v5, but it's not going to matter if you are so far in a deficit that you can't take it.
We'll see here. Nova gonna go ahead, back off, just go ahead and clear the lanes. They will likely lose that top tower though, and that applies a lot of pressure. That's now 3,000 gold, and AG.Y gonna go for the dive as Memo. He's gonna be sent another one here as he just gets reminded, hey, guess what? You're now in our battlefield. We're just gonna welcome you the hard way.
Yeah, and of course, really good rotations coming out of the side of AG.Y, but it was also just the power of A's on that Guan Yu. It's such a strong and fast hero that can get up in your face. Memo was just not in a good position to try and move away from it.
On top of that, too, Nova, they got to be a little concerned. You're already looking at a 3 to 2 level advantage coming out on the mid lane mage that's looking to already roam. That's going to start applying a lot of pressure elsewhere on the map. That gold lead is starting to rack up really fast. They have to find a way to stop the bleeding, try and make a play, but I can really much just tell here, they're just looking to be so cautious. Meanwhile, you know, Chen Yan, he's getting kills. Top lane is getting dived. It's not looking good here for Nova.
Yeah, when you're getting into a 1v1 situation, you could see that top lane was always going to favor the Marco Polo, but you can't force the fight out at that point. You're so far behind. They haven't managed to get a single kill, and we're only 4 minutes into this game. This gold is snowballing out of control right now.
And you see AG.Y, they just go ahead and claim the jungle. You got that priority up toward the top lane. You're now looking to assault, you know, that second tier tower. Sure, you can go in for a dive here, but again, instant denial. And elsewhere, the 1v1 in bot lane turned into a 2v1 as AG.Y go for the dive.
They're pulling 3 just off the Marco Polo, and he's safe enough to get away from this point. You look at the likes of what Sheik is doing here. He's just keeping them harassed constantly. This is the desperation play. They need to get a kill off this. It has to pay off.
Oh, look at that damage coming out from Chen, and almost taking down Simjo. It will pop the resurrection from Clyde as Clyde tries to re-engage, but guess what, bud? You're ticking down the clock, and he's going to get taken down here by the rest of AG.Y as they now assault the second tier tower in bot lane.
This has gone from bad to worse to holy crap, let's hit the restart button at this point, Opal. It's a good thing it's a best of 3, but I feel like if you're Nova, you're going to be feeling pretty shell-shocked by the time this one ends. We're looking at 5 minutes, and they're going to be down to just their base.
Unfortunately here for Nova, it could be, you know, that game 1 jitter. You might be still getting used to the play style here, but, you know, AG.Y, they're the hometown favorites for a reason here. They've been playing the game for a very long time, and they don't want to be, you know, upset immediately by one of these guest members.
Yeah, you know, I talked about how it's a faster pace of game in mobile MOBAs in general, but this is excessively fast. We're only on Tyrant number 2 at this point, and it's a completely free objective if anyone wants to take it. Clyde getting himself caught out. It's a rampage kill for the Moon Goddess now, and Simjo's in some trouble too as Sheik was looking to dash right into his face.
And man, if you're Nova here, you're just hoping to get a kill. You do not want to start off your tournament with a quick and easy, perfect game coming out from AG.Y. Of course, now they're looking to start pushing toward these high ground towers. They're looking to try and then burst open some super minions to come out of AG.Y's base.
Yep, try to keep that one moving at the moment, and it's all that Nova can do to try and hold on to their base here, but you've got to watch out. That Tai
Clyde
is just caught out. He's going to get the res up, but what does it matter? They can just take him out again. Easy kill for the Marco Polo, and they just keep the pressure on top lane.
And that's 1C right there. If he gets enough shards onto his axe, he can unleash so much power onto an AoE effect right in front of him that it just does so much damage. And now, side lane starting to creep on in. You can feel Nova, they're feeling suffocated in their own base here to start things off as AG.Y lane to lane start the push. You have the ultimate coming on down. The counter's still going. Simjo, the fact he's taking that much damage from a support alone, you have to be afraid as now the base is cracked wide open.
Yeah, they haven't had to get any neutral objectives at all at this point. The Overlord hasn't even spawned in this game just yet, and Nova can't hold on to any part of their base at the moment. They need a counterfight, but Clyde, he's checked too far forward, takes way too much punishment. Look at Jenon going way into the back line.
Oh no!
And it's become the front line. That killing spree starts off with the Soonbin, and I think this is going to be it. The double kill comes through. Opal,
can they
it
get
looks
one?
Like GG.
They're trying to get one, even with the core's help. It's not going to be enough as AG.Y perfect game, the German reps, to start things off here in game 1.
Oh, my goodness. We barely had stood up before we sat back down, man. The Germans just got absolutely shell-shocked in that game. I don't know what they're going to do going into this next one. We'll have a little bit of time to cool down. We're obviously not going away, not going on a break or anything.
Yeah.
But, man, it doesn't get much worse than that for a starting game.
And you know what? If you're looking at this, Devin, you're looking at this and you're saying it has to be the experience. It has to be the experience coming out from the Chinese
there's a gap.
team.
And also, like, hometown advantage counts for a lot, but at the same time, you're right. It is the experience in playing this particular version of the game for so much longer. But what can Nova learn from this? I mean, it's hard when you get basically stomped.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know a little bit about what they like to play, some of the heroes they're going to go for, some of the things they can do on those heroes, and how fast they're going to rotate. I would expect this time around Nova to be guarding the entrance to their blue and their red a lot more jealously, if you will.
That's a possibility. We'll have to see, though, when we get into game 2. If you're looking at this, though, as AG.Y, you're just saying, hey, that was quick. That was another, 15 elo onto the board. We're just going to keep on climbing that ranked ladder. From then, they don't really get to learn anything. They get to see how Nova responds to a high amount of pressure. And like you mentioned, maybe Nova can try and look to guard very early, but then that's a predictable play style.
I think it was much more coordinated, though, too, when you look at it. It wasn't just the game experience and knowing the heroes, although that does count for a lot. I think when you look at it, Nova definitely kind of got caught sleeping on a couple of those rotations. Like, it was only 1v1 territory when there was already a significant snowballing lead for AG.Y. Then it got into the position where they could kind of run roughshod over the entire time. But in the beginning of the game, it was always about having superior numbers on the AG.Y side, and I think Nova has to take note of that.
And another thing, too, you have to start to think about here is AG.Y, they only took the one Tyrant. They, even with all that pressure, didn't really take a whole lot. They took the Tyrant because it was up.
They just kept the pressure on the base, and
exactly.
Nova couldn't respond to it.
Yeah, and at that point, too, there's a little bit of farm disadvantages here, and that might be just another lane thing. That might be confidence just coming into the match.
The lane matchups, too, didn't favor them, too. Like,
yeah.
the Marco Polo was pushing in constantly, and even though the Tai tried to gank once or twice up there, it just didn't really happen. It didn't take.
And again, that might be a mistranslation when it comes to, how the game is played in the West versus the East. Because, oftentimes we do see that those marksmen usually go down to what we perceive here on the broadcast as a spectator view as that bot lane toward the Tyrant early.
You got to flip it 180 degrees,
yeah. Pretty much. Because often you like to have, that carry down there just to apply pressure.
Which is exactly what they did on the Nova side, by the way. They actually did send their more attack damage dealer, if you will, down to the bottom side.
And then for your Chinese team, they said, hey, put the Marco Polo up into that Lubu. And Lubu can't really do anything without a little bit of jungle assistance.
No, I mean, it's hard. And at that point, the jungler was already far behind. I mean, Suvid couldn't do anything because all of his buffs were getting taken away. The Tai was getting just spot killed everywhere in the jungle. And I think that's the issue, is that basically everything that Nova wanted to do was 3 steps behind. I mean, to use a bit of a cliche, they were playing checkers. AG.Y playing 4D chess.
4D chess, they got a little bit of Go mixed in there as well.
That's true. There's a Go character, but they didn't pick him.
Is.
That's one of the things I love about Honor of Kings. You got that extra kind of flavor that you only see in Asian games, and there is a character that just throws down a giant Go board,
and he says it's time to duel.
Basically,
that's pretty much
what he says.
Yeah, pretty much at that point. On top of that, too, you say, maybe they can, try some different picks. Quick reminder, Honor of Kings almost has 100 heroes at this point.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
There's
and
a lot to learn.
There were some power picks. And I think there were power picks that were banned on both sides.
And that's good to see from Nova that they have looked at what the competitive meta is with the World Championship taking place at the moment. They're like, okay, obviously this has to be OP. This is broke on this patch. Let's get rid of it so we don't have to worry about it. They were also, on the first pick, when it came to that blue side, they could have left something open, or maybe they just weren't familiar enough with it.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, their composition wasn't bad by any means. They had all the basic ingredients, but the issue was just executing. I mean, you can chuck everything in your mixing bowl, but then if you decide to just throw it in the microwave, you're not going to get a good result.
I don't know about you. I have pretty good microwave RNG.
Well, you wouldn't want to have cooking at my house. I'll just tell you that much.
Either way, we should be getting into match 2 quite shortly here. I think another thing that, really showed up for me here is I talk about those team fights. It was actually just scrambles coming out here from AG.Y. They said, send 2 or 3 to a lane, cause some mayhem.
But that was the chaos pressure. I mean, this is we see this a lot in many Chinese esports, especially in MOBAs. It's that signature aggression. Sometimes it's 1v1. Sometimes it's we're just going to zerg you all over the place.
Yeah.
We're going to have better numbers than you. We will take fights that we will win 60% of the time, and that's enough. And we can win off the back of that. Yeah. And you never have time to react.
Yeah, especially for Nova.
Especially with the likes of a Guan Yu as well. I think that was the bigger. Honestly, if there's going to be one ban, you look at the Marco Polo and how he was huge, he was enabled by the Guan Yu bot side.
Yeah. Well, not even that. He wasn't necessarily enabled because it got to the point during the game where he's pressuring a second-tier tower, and they have to send 3
But it's
people.
because there was That was the issue, and that's what allowed the Marco Polo to just basically free farm all game on Alubu, to be fair. It was a bad matchup. I mean, maybe Nova should have swapped lanes. It's a coulda, shoulda, woulda situation.
Again, like I mentioned when Clyde actually had to go back to the base right away, is you can't really leave lane when it comes to a mobile MOBA because that experience difference can be huge, and we saw it especially in the mid lane. 1 or 2 kills, you're going to be behind 2 or 3 levels. And just the additional base stats you get on top of the item gold that you receive just from getting kills, it gets a bit ugly, and it gets ugly fast.
Yeah, I mean, it snowballs are pretty quickly, but that was one heck of a snowball, man. I mean, usually a game can maybe take like up to 20 minutes at most. 15 is a little bit more common. We usually see at least one Overlord coming in, but he never really made an appearance. You know, he kind of showed up and he's like, "Hey guys, I'm at the party. What's going on?" And they're just like, "We already went home."
Honestly,
what are you talking about?
they were going out for dinner and they had to send him a text saying, "Don't come. We've already
we already paid the bill. It's done. It's easy. You know.
Sorry, mate. Next game maybe."
Yeah.
Don't you hate that?
I do.
Back in like high school.
Feels a bit rude, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're just like, dude, we had a thing planned and you bailed on me. I don't know.
I just got ghosted, man.
Well, we'll have to see here as we're going to go ahead and load up into our
All we've learned
draft.
here is that the two of us were not very popular in high school.
Yikes. All righty then. But we see the T being locked out here by AG.Y as they will have first pick on blue side to start game 2.
Yeah, this is the curious thing is how it actually mixes up between the teams, not just adapting from game 1, but adapting to a side change. I want to see what Nova do. If they maybe leave up the Gongsun Lee, if they say we're going to take a couple of power picks if we give this to you instead, it's entirely possible, but we still got a couple of bans to go.
What I was a little upset to see, though, is they actually didn't take the Yukio actually during that draft. They hovered it. It could have actually been a really awesome pick for them, as you do see that Lubu now getting locked out by AG.Y. So even banning out stuff that they were playing in the last game. So you know what, Nova? We're swapping things up on you.
Well, what they haven't changed on the Nova side is that first ban. And the Jing Zia has been the one they've already gotten rid of. And now Pangu will be removed. I think that makes a lot of sense. We didn't talk about it as much in game, but it leaves the Yukio up, and that's picked up. Should be for Xi'an.
Now, for Nova, they will know how this Yukio actually plays. It is Ryoma in AOV, just a different skin pretty much over here.
And for
in
you League
Kings.
fans, it's kind of like a mix of like Yasuo and like Pantheon.
Yeah, something along those lines. So Nova should know how to react to this. He does a lot of damage, though, really fast, and if it's anything like the snowball that we saw during game 1, he can get out of control instantly, but you see Nova taking their time here in their first pick.
I want to see the Gongsun Lee come in right now.
Oh, do the Bali.
It's available. They have the possibility to pick that up. The Bali is also there, but it's not the only thing that they're going to put a lot of value on. They're going to get themselves a big old tank for Breaker.
Yeah, Breaker's going to lock that in. Again, that could be transitioned over to Clyde, their support. But, again, the Sniper getting locked in. There is actually a Sniper in AOV, so this is another champion that hero that they've already played in the Western version here that will allow them to actually know how to play this one out. A lot of long range, too, means that AG.Y, it's going to be hard for them to get close, but that's more or less on Nova and their positioning here from Likely Snox. This would be a bit mean, though, coming out from AG.Y if they go ahead and pick up one of the new heroes getting added into the game.
Yeah, I think that's just flexing at this point.
Yeah.
Like, you're already up a game. Even if you lose one, it's going to be okay to get back into this. And I think AG.Y, they might just be having a little bit of fun with it, experimenting. The Wukong is also something they're contemplating picking up for Xi'an.
Oh.
But the Gongsun Lee was left. It's what I talked about in the last rotation.
Yikes.
That was just a lot of fun. Look at this. They got the Yukio. They got the Gongsun Lee. If they lock this in, there is so much damage on AG.Y's side.
Honestly, AG.Y are getting a lot of power picks right now. If you're Nova and you look at anything at the moment, you get a little scared. You see the Gongsun getting locked in. You see the Yukio getting locked in. Again, hyper damage. The one thing for them, though, is for AG.Y, usually a Gongsun Lee doesn't come online until she has about 3 to 4 items. That's when she starts doing a lot of damage, and that takes a while to get to.
But she's also hard to kill even up until that point.
On top of that, too, unless you're AG.Y, who are saying, you know what? Who cares about early game? Who cares about mid game? We're just going to snowball to the late game at 8 minutes.
Yeah, I think this is going to be hard unless Nova can really put those fights up early. I think whoever ends up getting their hands on that sniper, the Bali Shoyu, he's going to have to be doing a lot of work from the back line right now, but they will have the chance to pick up a pretty solid marksman in addition. If they do lock the Marco Polo, this is a chance to get some side lane pressure.
I'd be interested to see if they want to go with that. That means they would get 2 marksmen, which
I was about to say, it's kind of a weird comp, isn't it?
It'd be a little bit of a weird comp. Instead, they opt in for a warrior to go ahead and maybe use that as more of a side lane push there. If I do recall off the top of my head, you are looking at something, that's the Lee Xin actually getting locked in. So I believe that's another swordsman, sword play pretty much into the kit.
But he's kind of more beefy, a little less mobile. He's going to be, he's halfway between a tank and a damage dealer. I'm curious to see where they send him. I don't want to see a side lane situation where he gets outranged.
Yeah, again, that Gong Song Lee, I feel like they're just going to throw it wherever they want at this point. Honestly, Nova, you might likely see that sniper often going into the mid lane, as we do see some of those mid lane bans actually start to be coming out here from Nova. They don't want to deal, of course, with the paintbrush mage that we see here in Kings, and also the Moon Goddess getting locked out immediately here too by Nova.
Another hero that gave them a lot of trouble last time around. It makes sense to not have to deal with it. We'll see what the last ban comes in for AG.Y and how they round their comp out, because there is something they are missing, and it is a front line.
Okay, the Sun Sea getting locked out here by AG.Y, and this is, of course, the jungle assassin. I can't remember. I think it's the
Stealthy
Lee
one.
Wing, I believe, off the top of my head.
I think you're right.
That is for you AV players back in the West. That is the equivalent of the Batman being banned out here by
I still can't get over the
AG.Y.
fact that Batman and Superman are in AOV. Like, I didn't realize that.
Hey.
It's pretty awesome.
It just happens here.
Yeah.
Ooh, we're actually going to see the
Ruru
get locked in here. That's interesting here for Nova. So that's pretty much the Eagle trainer that's going to be locked in. Has a lot of mobility when she can use the Eagle to try and fly around the map, but a lot of bursts, and that really requires Nova to roam early here in the game. We'll see whether or not it can pay off, though, because oftentimes we do see that Nova got pushed in, and they were the ones always on pressure. Interesting enough here, if AG.Y does lock in the Frost Mage.
Yeah, so they continue to double down on the damage, and I think really this just drives home this is a very flex comp. It's a glass cannon. If they can explode onto Nova and just win the game outright, they don't need to tank any damage. It looks like they will chuck in a warrior here. Two's going to take a little bit of time about this, and they do end up locking it in. I'm trying to make sure I know.
So that is the totem.
Oh, no, you're right. It's the totem guy.
Yeah, it's our totem carrier, as well as AG.Y. Like I mentioned, the Frost Mage. That's going to be the Wang Sujun. Getting locked in. If you play AoV, very similar to Dio-chan over in the West. So a lot of AoE and a decent stun kit. I'd be interested to see this from Nova if we get the Crows coming out here to start things off
again, they're adding a lot more damage into the mix here and seeing if they can get those picks, setting them up really fast. I mean, they've already got an Assassin. They've got a Marksman for the backside. They might mix it up. Is this the WCG?
Possibly here. I was happy to see the Miyu. We get to see some Crows coming out here, but
it's a little early. We talked hovers a lot, and I think it bit us in the behind a few times, so we finally get our lock-in, and it's neither.
Yeah, it's going to be the Xi'an, I do believe, getting locked in here. Again, I'm not 100% familiar with the kit, so we're going to have to see how it plays out here. But, hey, maybe Nova's done some research here.
No time like the present to really get that testbed going. Nova, they need to get a win here to try and keep this series alive, force it into a Game 3 situation. The worst way to go out is another 5-minute game.
Another perfect game. I think that's the big thing. If you get a kill during a 5-minute game, props. You got a kill.
They did, but it was like literally on the front of their base, on their Nexus.
No, they didn't actually get that kill.
Oh, you're right. It was denied at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, because he had like 100 health. The core actually didn't finish him off.
Oh, no.
So, you know what? If it's a quick game that you lose, take a kill. Make it not a perfect game. Do something to smear that
combo
record.
breaker. You got to make it happen. But I mean, that's your consolation prize. They want to try and win this.
Yeah.
So they've mixed up the compositions. They've changed a couple things in their bans. Do you like this comp a little better than the game one?
I like that they're trying some new stuff. They're opting for a lot more range, which can be into their benefit, but it's AG.Y. We saw them dive last game pretty effectively. They were diving into the jungle and applying so much pressure.
They do have dive again, but they don't have the same front line.
Well, we'll see here as we're going to go ahead and load in for Game 2. AG.Y on your blue side. It's going to be Nova looking to tie up our series and force a Game 3 to start off their first match here of WCG 2019 from Xi'an. And already AG.Y saying, how do you do?
Yeah, one's coming in with the swords onto Snox right now, and you can see there's a big defense onto the blue buff. Now, 1C might be in some trouble. They decide to collapse for an insta first blood into the Yukio.
And that's going to be Nova already striking first. They said, hey, we're not going down without a fight, and I like the read coming out. that is a bad sign here for AG.Y. If they try and do that later on into the tournament, maybe they're able to, make it to a semifinal. If you do repetitive behavior like that, you're going to get punished.
Let it be known that nobody jumps into the jungle of Nova eSports twice. Now A's trying to go in and test onto that red buff. He finds Snox for a moment, turns back around, gets frozen up by the flowers.
Still going aggressive
here.
here.
Still trying to fight this. They just want to keep the pressure on.
Yeah, just gets a little bit back there, so it won't matter as AZ is able to go ahead and clear out of the jungle, but you do see AG.Y continuing this pressure, a lot of roaming, and even that is being pretty much matched here by Nova. You can see them looking to try and defend their top side jungle. You have Breaker slow pushing the wave back toward the side of AG.Y so they don't get caught out here. And you know what, Nova, they have themselves a lead. I think they're pretty happy how this game started.
Yeah, the last time it was just bad to worse because they never got off to a good start. Their composition's better in the 5v5, and they've already found Tuz and Xi'an. Though
he's going to jump in. He's really low. He's going to get stunned up here, and in retaliation, AG.Y is able to pick up their first kill of the game. Simjo just getting a little too far forward on the assassin, and man, you got to be very careful here if you're Memo.
Yeah, you might want to back off at this point. He does line up the big shot. Ace is able to sidestep it, though. And the gold is a lot closer, but look at this start. Instantly onto the Tyrant as the Gongsun Lee is able to take out Breaker.
And that's the thing. That's that, marksman into a warrior matchup where AG.Y are going to excel, it seems. And that gets them their second kill of the game. And you can see Nova want to try and defend a blue buff. Guess what? Tyrant was already taken. And AG.Y, they're just going to go ahead and step on the gas pedal as they go ahead and take down the support from Nova. And man, Nova, it's starting to bleed. You got to slow it down.
Yeah, they need to. This is starting to look like game one all over again. It was a good stop on the blue buff, but the second time around, they come back, pick it up, they ground Clyde into little bits of sand, and all of a sudden, Shig is able to take out that bottom tower in just a moment. Xi'an and Tuz putting pressure on 1C, going to find Sinjo, who runs away from him in the jungle, and this map is owned by AG.Y.
AG.Y, apply that pressure in, and they're looking for a dive here onto Breaker. He's a little too far forward. The rest of the team is nearby. You're going to have the knockback in underneath the tower, and they find themselves a kill here onto AG.Y. Simjo diving in onto the tank, though, and it's not going to pay off as they continue to slaughter them underneath their second-tier tower.
You got to pick the targets. You have to pick the targets you can actually execute. Why would you go into the backline as an assassin under the one tank that AG.Y have? They're getting desperate. This is not good. Memo, he does have enough damage to take down Tuz, but he gets the health back just in time.
That's the ultimate coming out here, and it denies the kill. And if you're Memo, you're really hating life right now. That should have been an easy kill, but it was denied by the kit.
It's 4,000 gold already. This is once again snowballing. AG.Y continue to keep the pressure inside of the jungle. It's just A's here, but you got to be thinking, if you're Nova, how the heck did you let this happen?
Honestly, you look at it, you did good. You got yourself that early. You got the first blood of the game, Pyra. But now, this is the part where there's more to the game, obviously. Is AG.Y, they're already applying that pressure. It's been consistent. You look at that minimap, no one's been in mid lane half the damn time during this game.
They're forced away.
They're always in that jungle. They're always contesting for every single buff. And once again, it gets stolen away, and Snox is going to be the main target as he gets taken down. And the rest of Nova trying to defend, but Breaker's going to be broken apart. And now Simjo has to evade underneath the tower.
There are no breaks on this pain train, Opal. They just keep the hits coming. Once C is able to keep them locked up under the turret, the Gongsun Lee just gets to work and bashes down yet another tower. You gotta just look at the minimap to see this war of attrition is being lost.
And that's going to be 3 members going directly into mid lane. You now have lost all the outer tier towers when it comes to the map, and now Nova, they lose all this just, inherent vision that comes at the start of the game. Now they're pretty much blindly advancing into the midsection of the map, and guess what? There's no wards when it comes to AOV or Honor of Kings. You're going in blind half the time, and it's very dangerous to go alone.
And there's really nothing you can take to help at this point. Keeping the pressure on in all 3 of the lanes, that means we're once again in a situation where it will be Siege and Bunker. How well can Nova defend on the rest of these towers here inside of their base to try and keep it from falling?
Honestly, you can turtle really hard, Pyra, but you're starting to lose out on all your jungle gold as it's being taken apart here. You have item differences starting to form. You have a second Tyrant being started up by AG.Y, and you have a 7,000 gold lead at 5 minutes.
Yeah, this isn't good right now. I think if you are Nova, what you need to do is set up a pick. Let one of these AG.Y members get a little cocky, push a little too far. You got to utilize your Ruru, get into the backline, get a quick pick. You have the numbers then, and you can maybe pull off a miracle fight.
The other thing, too, for me, though, if you're trying to catch that Gungsung Lee, you already said during that draft how slippery she can be. You also have massive experience leads.
You also said how good she is on 3 items, and if I look it down the line, she's getting pretty darn close.
Pretty close. And you also have massive experience differentials starting to come out here where Nova, just inherently in the base stats, are going to be behind by effectively 2,000 gold on top of the massive gold lead by AG.Y as they start to pressure here onto the high ground, going for a dive onto Clyde. He might be a tanky rock boy, but he looks like he just crumbled under the pressure.
Yeah, that pressure way too much right now as they just completely tear through the rest of Nova Esports. Forget the super minion. Simjo is trying to be the hero onto the Yukio. Nothing doing, and AG.Y are going to get themselves a clean sweep to close out the series in under 15 minutes of total game time.
And Memo, he'll be the one to remember how this series ends off here in Game 2 as AG.Y go ahead and take home the victory in dominating fashion, 2-0 for the first match of the tournament.
Well, that was abrupt. I think there's no other way to put it for Nova Esports. I hope they were taking notes because they just got schooled.
Yeah, you're coming into this one. You know, there's a hero called the Old Master. And, you know, AG.Y, they just walked in with just full, you know, power and confidence.
Stroking the beard, just
They're
being like, we got
and
this.
they said, you know, they're sipping some
they're
fine
They're
wine.
only the novices across the other side.
You know, they have their book wall behind them, and they said, oh.
Is this sophistication in your mind? Just like,
Oh.
it's a cup of wine and like a bookshelf?
No, they looked at Nova, and they're like,
that's what I do.
Oh, so innocent, so novice at that point. For Nova, though, consolation. You did get yourself first blood. You recognized a pattern in the gameplay of the Chinese team that you faced. You showed some development when it came to the course of the series.
Yeah.
That's one thing to take home.
It's step one.
It's step one, and it's a very tall ladder to go.
Yeah, I think that's the issue. Is like Nova, and obviously they won't be facing up against the likes of AG.Y every single time. I mean, just about half the teams participating in this event are coming in from China. They have that inherent experience advantage. A couple of them, like KSSC and D-Team, are very scary. But you won't be playing them all the time. You only need to be top 2 in your group to make it into the semifinals. There's still chances for Nova to come in and really close out strong in the next couple of days. But that was not an encouraging start, so we'll see how they recover. I think that's the key thing, is letting the mental kind of rest and recover, not letting the fact that series ended so fast get to your head.
And you know what? You have the night, you know, to come in tomorrow for the second half of the group stage and, you know, try again, see if you can fix things up. Because you do have to remember, like you mentioned, half the group is Chinese teams. There's 2 Chinese teams in each group. That's already, you know, a little bit of a scary one. If you're able to take one victory, though, on one of these teams, there is a possibility, you know, you advance on to the semifinals. So they do have to, at some point, climb over that ledge to try and get to that higher step.
Yeah, and now for AG.Y, it did feel like in that second game they were kind of playing with their food a little bit. They got their hand bitten for a moment, you know, when they tried to go for that blue buff invade. So I think there is definitely a pattern for teams to be able to exploit them. The issue is they didn't change anything after that. They said, hey, it's fine. We lost first blood. We can go in and do it again. We can get the Tyrant. We can find these little holes in the play that they make and just basically overwhelm and overrun. And it was just keeping the constant pressure in the jungle. And I think that's what AG.Y really seemed to like to do. I don't know about a lot of the other Chinese teams and how much they're going to do that same thing, but we saw AG.Y never step a foot out of the jungle if they could avoid it.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, when it comes to MOBAs, the Chinese region as a whole is bloody. They're fast, they're aggressive. It's almost like this game was made for them at this point, Pyra. So
funny enough, if it was the original Chinese mobile MOBA, so I think it was actually made for them when you think about it.
Just a little bit.
Just a bit, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
They have that inherent advantage. But, of course, our Western teams, they will be able to try and practice overnight. You can try and, you know, maybe share up some of these tactics they're bringing into, of course, these team fights.
On the surface, it wasn't bad. It was just you could see the gap in experience.
Yeah.
I think that's the key there, is that it really came down to the biggest difference in the experience gap, and we'll see if they can fix it up. We are going on a quick break.